For those of you I haven't met before, I'm Lucy. I'm a organising committee member for Story Feast, and I'm also the author of this picture book, which came out in August, A Love as Full as the Moon. It was published by Penguin, and it's my debut. I've also have my next book coming out in January with Bloomsbury, which is Logan's Lantern. So it's another picture book for children aged 3 to 6. So that's me covered off. But today we're focusing on these amazing ladies and the stars of the show. So the first panel is going to be all about the mixed race creative experience. The word goes that heritage is deeply intertwined with identity and often shapes us as creatives. So what happens when you belong to more than one community, culture, or country? This is the question we're going to be asking ourselves today, and hopefully having some quite lively conversation around this subject matter. So we'll also have some time for questions at the end. So please do just save up all of your ideas and questions, and we'll have about 10 minutes, I think, towards the end to talk about those. Okay, so I think we'll just crack on. The best way, I believe, to introduce everybody on this panel is for each person to introduce themselves.
I'm a poet of mixed Chinese, Malaysian and Belgian heritage. Sorry, am I speaking loud enough? I'm conscious that...
Project.
More projecting. Okay, I should put on my actress hat. But I grew up here in London. I have my debut poetry pamphlet coming out next year. It's called Eating Air. It focuses on identity and belonging and connection through the lens of food, and will be published by the Emma Press in July. The book that I have up here is just an anthology that I had a poem published in recently. I think it's stocked in the bookshop, but that's it. That is me. Okay.
Hi everybody, my name is Nicole Ogren. I am Ghanaian, Filipino. I grew up in the States. I'm from Virginia originally. And this is my debut book that came out last year. It's called The Half of It, Exploring the Mixed Race Experience. And it was born out of a podcast that I do with my friend Emma Slade Edmondson, which is called Mixed Up. So we were approached to essentially write this book and dig into essentially a lot of the things that we talk about on the podcast about being mixed, from interracial relationships, childhood informing identity, a lot of the sort of stereotypes about being mixed, as well as the history of mixed people across the globe. So, yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Camille Witcher. This is my debut picture book, which did come out quite a while ago now. It's still available on ebook, as far as I understand. I am mixed British-Japanese, and I am predominantly an illustrator who throws some words at me. And I hate having to introduce myself, so I'm done.
I don't think I can go shorter than that, so
Sorry.
So my name's Emma Sheva. I am an English teacher at a school in London. I'm also an author. This is my 8th book. It came out on Thursday, but it's my debut for teens. So it's called My Name is Jodie Jones, and it's about a girl who her father is half Chinese, and so her grandfather is Chinese, but I'm actually half Thai. My father's Thai and my mother is Irish. So I grew up in a sort of Irish immigrant family in South London, and didn't know my Thai dad, and he died when I was young. And I have a Thai family in Bangkok, but I don't speak Thai. And so that whole part of my identity was sort of, separate, and didn't know anyone Thai actually when I was growing up. So I was very different to my family. so we'll get into that a bit more, but that's my heritage and my sort of background. My other books are mostly middle grade. I've got 4 that are novels for 8 to 12. They all have either an Asian or a half character. So I have a girl who's a Cambodian, adopted Cambodian girl. I have a half Japanese, half Italian girl in my first book. All of them, well, one of them actually is Greek because and then the other one is a half Thai girl, but it's also got a boy narrator. So there's a lot of mix going on in that.
Everybody's kind of touched upon their mixedness. It's a very difficult thing to try and put your finger on sometimes as a mixed person. And I'm really grateful that everyone kind of dived in and introduced their own mix in the way that they did. But I want to just quickly ask the question about how everybody approaches their mixed identity and whether you find it easy to actually say, I am, half this and half this, or I am this and this. In my case, I didn't actually say, but I'm Malaysian Chinese and English. So my dad is English and my mum is Malaysian Chinese. And over the years, I've come to sort of define myself now as this and this, rather than half and half, just because I feel personally that it's a bit more inclusive and whole and doesn't sort of limit who I think I am in terms of my ethnicity. But I'm keen to hear from everybody else. So why don't we start with Emma?
I think I like your approach, actually. I don't say I'm Irish and Thai because it's actually much more complicated than that, because I'm also British, but I don't sort of feel British. I feel like I do feel like I'm a Londoner, like I've got that kind of pride, that's a funny one as well. I think in the States you can say you're Filipino American or Japanese American, and you have that kind of vernacular to say what that is, and here we don't really have that, and so that's kind of an odd one, but life's taken me down some odd avenues, and so it's much more complicated than that now. So I do say half and half, and I wonder whether that's because I do feel like I'm neither fully. And even in the back of this it says, I was just looking at it yesterday, and it says half Irish and half Thai, and that's what I thought of when you mentioned that, and I thought I do prefer that, but there is for me a big separation of those. So yeah.
At the moment I say British Japanese, but it has changed so many times, and yes, there is that half and half thing of, okay, half English, half Japanese, but then I just say British Japanese, which is a bit broader maybe, but well, that's what I say at the moment, because growing up it was, no, you're supposed to say you're half. And another thing that we don't say anymore, let's say, in the 80s, and then it's mixed race, but then that's not specific enough, and I don't know if it's specific enough for other people or if it's not specific enough for me, and I'm not, like culturally, I'm very British, but not entirely. And yeah, there's always the other half. And then, but I'm not, like if I go to Japan, I'm not Japanese either. And I mean, I'm not fluent in Japanese either. And I don't look like I belong either place either. Because, yeah, most people guessed every other ethnicity for me, but not the correct one.
That tends to be the case.
So yeah, it's good to be able to blend in.
This is great. Nicole?
I like what you just said there at the end about blending in. I think that's something that I never felt like I ever did. So yeah, like I said, I'm Ghanaian and Filipino, but I'm also American. I grew up in the States in Virginia. And so like Emma was saying, there's a very specific way to identify yourself there. So yeah, I remember growing up, like I was always, like I would be considered African American, even though that is a very specific identity, I feel like, in terms of being of African heritage, but not necessarily knowing where your family comes from. Whereas for me, I know exactly where my parents came from. I know the generations back and have all of that history there already. But also I've been living in London for the last 15 years. So
have recently become British, even though I definitely don't feel like I am British. But yeah, growing up, it was something that I felt was really difficult for me because I knew what people see. Like, I know what everyone sees immediately when they look at me. And I also know the feeling of wanting people to know that I'm also Filipino as much as I am Black. But yeah, not necessarily having the choice to have other people acknowledge that. So yeah, so I think nowadays I kind of come out into the forefront with it. It was something that I never really did when I was a child, and I think that was the trickiest thing, was not really having the language as a kid to kind of explain things or stand up for yourself, or, you know, feel like you have ownership over your identity in that way. But yeah, much easier now as someone in my 30s, but yeah, as a kid was much trickier before, so.
I think I pick up on various things that people have said here. Actually, in a strange way, I think I'm less comfortable describing, or not less comfortable describing my mix now, but it feels like it sits less easily. So I'll always go into the explanation of Chinese, Malaysian, and Belgian. But then people often think, oh, but you sound this way, or your name is Chinese, why is your name Chinese? And it's often followed up with that you don't look at all Chinese. And even the Belgian side is, oh, do you speak Flemish? Then I'm like, no, he's French speaking. It's like lots of lots of sort of caveats, you know. So yeah, I find conversations about my mix is usually lengthy. And I've never really minded the half this, half that. I get that that's contentious now, and there's a whole debate about it. But like for me, when people don't see any Chinese, and then me saying half Chinese is already like a thing. And yeah, I think affectionately I refer to myself as halfy. That's it to anyone else, but I feel like
in Japanese.
Yeah, halfy.
I would say halfy.
I'll be like halfy.
I know it's kind of like, it's not good to say that, but it's, well, some people think it's not good to say. Like, even in Japan, I think some parents of mixed Japanese into other race children, they'll say, no, you're not half, you're double. For example, it's getting complicated. And then you think, two people mashing together. So yeah, it's not mathematically correct. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think maths just doesn't come into the equation. But one thing that strikes me is that everybody has talked about some kind of pull in some sense of, you know, belonging maybe to, you know, ethnically speaking, to sort of genetic, sides to things, but also, as Nicole said, like, you grew up in the US, and, you know, there's other layers, there's always very many layers that contribute to how a person feels they actually belong. So I want to just go back to when we were sort of younger, and the conversations or experiences that kind of shaped our awareness of being mixed. Does anybody want to dive in with an early experience that they may have had that made them aware that they were mixed for the first time?
I don't know that mine was for the first time, but I wrote this about this particular moment in the book, which again, I think being mixed Black and Asian, I felt like had I'd get very specific comments from people, like when they found out that I was mixed and mixed Filipino, for example, they would be like, oh, well, that explains why you're so beautiful. Which is like, it's like, yeah, which is like such a kind of it was an endeared thing to say, and I think also comes out a lot now, more and more, with like people wanting mixed babies and things like that, like really fetishizing kids, which is kind of weird.
There's a dark section.
Exactly. But this particular the thing that I wrote about in the book was when I was in high school. I've always, speaking about math, I've always been really bad at math, and so my dad he had booked me a tutor during lunch, so I had to spend my lunch hour with the tutor for algebra, which was like the most depressing thing ever as a kid. And so one of my other classmates in my algebra, which was right after my algebra class, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing for lunch?" And I was like, "Oh, I've got to go, see this tutor." And he was like, "Oh God," he's like, "That's a real shame." He was like, "You should be really good at math." He was like, "You're Asian." He was like, "But your black side is really letting you down." So I was like, "Oh." And I think it was just like this really specific.
Can I ask how you dealt with that?
Yeah, I think at the time I didn't know what to say, but I just think it like again, like as an adult reflecting back, it speaks to like those kinds of comments that people say where they're like almost like half trying to compliment you but also like insult you or like make a joke at the same time. Like it's one of those things again that really signaled to me what people think about black people and what people think about Asian people, and it was just kind of like, I don't know, it's a weird thing of being both of those things at once. And so I was really like, I wouldn't say I internalized it, but it's just something that I became really aware of from that point. But
so that idea of being caught on the back foot
right,
is definitely something that I also experienced. So when I was younger, I must have been about 4 or 5, somebody asked me very innocently, as children do, "Oh, what's it like being coloured?" They use this word. And, this is obviously some years ago, but you just don't realise when you're that age that there is anything different about you.
Yeah.
And as a child, you just think we all just belong as we are, and it's so innocent, isn't it? But I still remember that to this day, which means it definitely affected me. And a separate incident was when a child asked me if I was Indian. And I came home and asked my mum, "Oh, Mum, am I Indian?" And so again, it was when I was quite small. I think it was just these sort of early experiences, interactions that made me realise, hang on a minute, is there something different about me?
Right.
Like noticeably different? Why do people keep asking me these things? And it's trying to grapple with these ideas of belonging, isn't it, from like an early age, and then obviously it shapes us as we go up. But it's interesting to hear. I mean, that's a terrible example. It's nothing quite
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Okay, so coming on to our work as creatives, I'm really intrigued to know how being mixed has influenced your work and shaped it. We have obviously authors on our panel, but we do have an illustrator and we have a poet as well. So we've got a nice kind of spectrum here. Suyin, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I guess I've written poetry since I was a teenager. I think mixedness has always been a topic, hasn't been the only thing that I've written about, but it is a point of questioning, I guess, and you're often going to write about things in your work which are not settled, which have questions in them. And I think it's affected my work now in the way that the sort of main topic of my debut pamphlet is food. I think that's really comes as no surprise. Someone who is also Chinese Malaysian, there's a lot of focus on food in our culture, and actually on the Belgian side also we're very obsessed with food. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think from the industry perspective, industry?
Yeah,
Why not? I guess I haven't really felt like there have been obstacles in my way because of my mixedness. If anything, I think not external obstacles, but perhaps internal ones. I remember reading Crying in H Mart, and Michelle Fauna talks about how when she was younger she saw that Karen O was the lead singer of the Yeah Yeahs, and she thought, oh my goodness, I can't be a rock star because there's already a half Korean rock star. That space is gone. I really had that same feeling. So I wrote a lot when I was a teenager. I actually did a creative writing degree, and then after graduating, did something completely different as a career and sort of left writing a bit behind. And I really came back to it a handful of years ago. And when I did come back to it, I found this other poet called Cynthia Miller, who is also mixed Chinese and Malaysian, went to the same university as I did, 10 years younger, and already had a debut collection, like shortlisted for the Forward Prize. I was like, oh my goodness. She's younger than me, she's basically the same as me. It's like, so great already. That's it. You know, why am I even gonna bother trying? Actually, reading Crying Nature Mark was really helpful because Michelle Zhang was like, you know, is there any a white guy out there who would like go, oh my goodness, there's like another white male author? Yeah. I better not. I better not. So,
Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel that a lot. Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was really talking about being mixed was never really something that I did. And then when I met my podcast co-host and co-author Emma, it was just something that was born out of like a kinship for being mixed, and we met and we started having these conversations that we felt like we were never able to have with other people. And so we started recording the podcast, and we started doing all of that research, and again finding other people who have also been like, oh, I've never been asked these questions before, and this is kind of the first opportunity I've ever had to talk about being mixed and what that experience is like for me. And again, so many similarities but also so many differences. And so I'm really proud and excited about the fact that that was able to be kind of like my work in that genre, I guess we could say. It's I feel like it's not something, even still having published a book, I think there's still so few of us out there talking about it, because again, I think we're so used to having other people tell us and dictate to us, you know, what it is that we can and can't say, and how we should identify, and how we're not enough of this, and how we should be more like that. So in terms of, again, my own like sort of creativity, this book is obviously nonfiction, but it's allowed me to also find so many other people, obviously like you guys, who are doing all this incredible work. And really. That's probably what.
It was about how being mixed has shaped your creativity.
Oh, right.
And I'm eager to hear from you, especially because you're an illustrator, and it's kind of coming at things from maybe a slightly different angle.
Okay, I think as an illustrator, and most people as kids drew, right? And the person you probably drew was yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's the main thing. Like, she's got a fringe, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just natural to draw characters that look like yourself or the people around you. Well, maybe just not so much the people around you, but I guess more of yourself mostly. Mm-hmm. I don't know. If I look at sort of drawings I did as a kid, it was pretty much a dark-haired person. Mm-hmm. It was me, really. So that automatically goes into a lot of your an illustrator's work, like a lot of yourself. You pick and choose without having to necessarily think hard about what you are drawing. It's just what comes naturally. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I can't help, like, I guess I don't notice always the things that I add in that are actually part of my Japanese background or English background, or a mix of the two, or anything stylistically. And other people are probably more likely to notice it than I am. Mm. Whereas for me, this is normal. This is what I want to draw. This is what I think of. Unless, of course, someone tells you you need to include this and this and this in your drawings. But I mean, talking about what we actually create from scratch ourselves. So it can't be anything other than whatever the mix is in yourself that comes out, I think.
To set the scene, my family are 6'4" and ginger. Except me. And actually I have a half Jamaican cousin. So we were the other, you know, the
the halves, the others. And I grew up in South London. At South London at the time, before it got kind of gentrified, was full of immigrants. And my school was a convent, and it was Irish, Jamaican or Afro-Caribbean kind of, and Italians. And so my best friend was from Guyana, she's black. And I remember seeing when I was a kid, it was all of the uprising in Soweto and everyone moving. I don't know if you can remember this, if you're old enough to remember this, but everybody used to sort of half dance and move in a tribe, protesting together. And I remember looking at it thinking, I will never be able to move with my tribe because I don't have my people, I don't have that. And so I felt Irish obviously, but I could look in the mirror and see that I'm different. And my cousin, who is half black, who, we were the others, and it was even within my school, I was different. I didn't know anyone else half, I didn't know anyone else height. It couldn't not go in my work. Like that feeling of not belonging, not knowing who you are, but it's not usually about being mixed, it's about other stuff. So even Dream on Amber, she's half Japanese and half Italian. It's about the fact that her father left and he has never come back. And she is angry, but she's sad. And how can he have seen us and known us and loved us and then just gone? And so it's more about that. But, and actually that was really hard because he's Japanese and her mum's Italian. Whatever nation you make that dad that's left, it's like you're making a comment about people from there.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of tricky. And actually in Jodie Jones, the mother was Chinese, and my agent was like, I'm uncomfortable with that, and I feel like we're making a comment about Chinese parenting. And I said, yeah, I hear you, okay. So I made the dad half Chinese and mum white, just so that it didn't feel like that's a judgment. But every one of them, there's a character that's, not quite kind of feeling part of the family. Like the girl who adopted, her family is all white. Even her adopted sister is Russian, so she looks like the family. But her name's Dara Palmer. She doesn't. So I think it just, with subconsciously, it's like drawing a picture of yourself. This is the world that you know. These are the feelings that you grew up with. It's really hard for me to not kind of infuse those in.
It's the mix of everything, not just being mixed. It's
the feelings and it's the stories and
you can't really unpick it.
Yeah.
It's all
it's embedded.
Definitely.
It's interesting, this idea as well of like ownership of our characters or the worlds that we live in. What do you think about, obviously, writing mixed characters, as several of us have, or illustrating them? Do you think that we should only be writing or illustrating mixed characters? Or do you think that, as you said, you included a lovely Greek character, and why not? What do you think about that, Emma?
I was speaking to Candy about this. We did a panel on cultural appropriation a few years ago. It feels like you're allowed to write about certain people, kind of thing. And as a Southeast Asian, I'm kind of allowed to write about Cambodian girl. I'm not Cambodian. I have no experience of being. I mean, I was adopted legally by my stepdad, but I'm not an adopted, child into a different family. And but it feels like, oh, that's okay. Like, you're okay to write about that, but I can't write about like the black experience or being Native American or, because, and I hear that that's a problem. I get that. I feel like there need to be authentic voices. I don't want to only write about being half Thai or half Irish. Like, it makes my experience really, really tiny.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one. Like, what do you do with that?
What do you think?
Well, I've just gone blank already.
Would you feel comfortable if somebody asked you to illustrate a
Well, this
book
is the thing. I think that we kind of brought into, not always, but there is a feeling that we fulfill a role, and once we're done with that role, we can't change that role. Whereas, there'll be the default illustrators who are perhaps predominantly white, who are able to do whatever they want, and then it's like, but we need like a Japanese character or something, right, we can't really ask them to do it, so let's just go to that one.
Yeah.
But then we'll come back to the regular scheduled person for everything else. And I have my illustrator friends who have been asked to include other ethnicities within their work, and so I know that some of them take the job because they need the money, but they're uncomfortable with it, and they will ask, okay, but what does that mean? What do you want? And they've been told, make them ethnically ambiguous.
Oh my
And,
god.
and they've been more detailed about what the character should wear clothes-wise,
Right.
rather than where they are from. It's like, yeah, just kind of make them this skin tone, but have, you know, like stripy blue and white t-shirt and this color dungarees, and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay. And it's difficult for them because, I mean, all of us illustrators are so like struggling, I would say, especially now. So you kind of take the work, but yeah, it's not great, and I can't give more specific details other than that because I don't want to get people into trouble. But yes, it was, that situation was not good, I'd say, for that person. And I've never been asked to include other ethnicities in my characters or my portfolio, but I know that a lot of white illustrators have been asked to. So I don't know what that's all about either. So it's like, I mostly like drawing animals. You know, I probably should draw more people, but I'm also uncomfortable with that thing of, right, someone in a wheelchair, someone with a headscarf, that kind of box ticking exercise. I just think, well, why aren't there just generally more people doing that anyway, like from their own experiences, and not just, it's a difficult one, because whilst, yes, I want to fulfill what I want to draw or what I represent, but I also want to have a bit more free rein.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's
drawing
difficult, isn't it? Because I think the publishing industry is obviously on a wave at the moment of trying to be more inclusive, and that's brilliant. It's so good. I mean, just going back to Wendy's slide, which showed, you know, sort of percentages and numbers and things, obviously, I think there has been some decrease, but the feeling of wanting to have more people represented is definitely there, I think. But there's that trap of falling into being just totally pigeonholed, or, you know, writing about just your, like, the one experience that you seem valuable to the industry. And yeah, I guess I just wonder, you know, whether people feel as though the industry, for them, in their experience of being published, has actually been a supportive power, or whether you feel like it's been limiting in certain ways with your respective books. What do you think?
Sure. So I think I can maybe see positives from it right now. Like, so there are various communities that I've become a part of because of, I guess, not necessarily my mixedness, but actually my connection to EC, so to the bubble tea writers, which is ultimately why I'm here. And also there's a British EC poets community that I'm part of as well. So it's allowed me to have community that I'm not sure I would have found otherwise. And yeah.
Do you feel like there's been any pigeonholing of your work so far? I mean, I guess poetry.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, different because I'm not creating characters in my poetry. I'm writing from my own experience. So in that sense, I mean, I guess I feel like my debut pamphlet will be very much about identity and belonging. So that is the topic is about being mixed, and I don't necessarily want that to always be the main focus of my work. I want to be able to write about the things, but I'm aware that all of everything that I write will always be coloured by the fact that that is what I am, and whether it's specifically about the mixed experience or it's just that you know, I have had more multicultural experiences or whatever it is. I think it will always feed through. So I'm not sure I'm ever going to get completely away from it unless I start writing fiction.
What about you, Nicole?
I mean, two things. I think I come from a very different. Well, you've published poetry, so and I, having published nonfiction, that was already, I guess, difficult. I think in its own right in terms of marketing. And the support again came mostly from other authors, other Black and Asian authors. Offering their advice and their counsel and that kind of thing. My publishing experience was really difficult. Really, really difficult in terms of, again, being pigeonholed, being not prioritized. I was like, how I can't be that diplomatic really in saying talking about it because it was really bad. And I think, again, Emma and I, my co-author, being two Black authors, I think we definitely came in on the wave of wanting, again, more diverse voices, more Black authors and that kind of thing. And knowing that, like, we've definitely got pigeonholed into just being Black authors, and not being allowed to again market on the nuance of the topics that we talk about, which are so many. And again, me specifically, I really got so much support from a lot of the Asian authors who tapped into the fact that I'm also Asian. So I like that side is something that I want to talk about more because it's not something I get to talk about a lot. So it's been really difficult. It's been really difficult. The support that's come from obviously readers and listeners to the podcast has been amazing, but from a publishing perspective, it was pretty dire, to be honest.
How did your book come about? I'm intrigued, with it being non-fiction as well.
Yeah, well, we got approached to write it. Again, I really do feel like it was something that came off the wave of like the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. That was when we got our book deal signed and everything. And we were already doing the podcast, and we were like about two seasons in. And so, yeah, I guess it was, great for them in terms of having a kind of built-in audience, a built-in topic that people were already interested in. But like with anything to do with art and and books, and you need money. You need monetary support to be able to do all of the cool things that people see online. And they love giving that money to people who don't need it. So
Here, Richard Osman.
Exactly. Richard Osman. But yeah, so that was basically my experience.
Thank you.
Sorry, not that excited.
Sorry, just realising my answer is so different because of me being a poet and you not having any expectations.
I hear that. Yeah, no, I get that.
It's living the dream of creative freedom.
Whatever it all becomes. I think my expectations were already low, so I think I then walked in being like, oh, this is worse than I thought. Great.
Oh my goodness. Emma, what about you? Did you have any opportunities or challenges that kind of sprung up as a result of your mixedness in your publishing journey?
Not really. It didn't really come up, except I used to wear a headscarf. So when my first book got published, they were like, "Good, you wear a headscarf." We go out until we've got to, I thought that was yeah. No, when I wrote, I have a book about ties that go and solve a mystery, and the illustrator put a Buddha right by the front door, and I was like, oh, no. Never going to have a Buddha right there at the foot of the stairs as you walk in the door. And so you can pick up on things like that, which are kind of useful before it goes out to print. But otherwise, it hasn't
really been a thing. I think also because I don't know if I look particularly Thai. Like most people think I'm either Spanish or it's not an obvious thing, and so I don't know if I ticked the box enough. I did when I had the scarf. But no, it hasn't really come up. I don't know whether because my books are about something else, but the characters have usually a heritage that is not British or not solely British. I don't know. Yeah, it's not been a problem or
For me, I came through the Penguin Right Now program, so that's how my debut actually came about. And for anybody that doesn't know what that program is about, it's essentially a editorial mentorship that runs for a year, and you have to apply with a story. I think the year I applied was just children's purely, and I got onto that, which meant I was mentored by an amazing editor called Annie Nowen for 1 year. And for me, clearly that was, I should mention it, champions diverse and underrepresented voices. That's the whole point of the programme. So in my experience, it was a really positive thing. And I was definitely as much riding the wave of inclusivity as I guess the publishers were. And, it's hard not to feel extremely grateful for these opportunities. I guess it's a different conversation whether, that should have ever been the case in the first place. But here we are, and at least we're having opportunities now, which is a better position to be in than not at all, I like to think. Okay, we're coming to our last question, and then we're going to have some questions from our lovely audience as well. So just looking away from our own books and our own work, I want to ask who some of your favourite mixed ESEA characters are, whether from film, from books, or from any other kind of creative format.
Sure, yes. So I think I mentioned Crying in HMR earlier. Really great. But I think in terms of my favourite character, I would pick Lydia from Claire Coder's Woman Eating.
Yes.
She's great, and I think she's actually one of the first mixed characters that I read. I just feel like they're been a lot. And she's really interesting. She's half Japanese, right? Fully Japanese and fully Chinese Malaysian vampire.
That has to be
But she just does things in the novel which I really recognise in myself. Like when she's asked where she's from, she describes herself as the nationality of her father and her mother. And reading that, I was like, yeah, I do that too. And actually, that is a weird thing. You ask someone who's English, and they're like, oh yes, my father is English and my mother is English. And other things in the book, she wonders like there are certain traits of her, which side they come from, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was really and the book also focuses a lot on food and like how important that is culturally to people. And so yeah, that's your choice.
What about you, Nick?
Love that. Characters I'm really struggling to think of, but I also really connected to Crying in HMR, Michelle Zauner. I think also like music was definitely a big thing for me growing up, and so like artists like Karen O and stuff.
Characters and so
You can come back to me.
I don't remember the question.
Does anybody? I mean, it's quite a difficult question because I guess there aren't that much more.
I completely misunderstood the question or just forgot as usual. So it was more just I thought the question. Never mind what I thought the question was. I'll answer the question that I want to answer. So I think it's not a character, but there is a comic that I like by Christine Muddy.
She's Japanese American, and it's I have to write this down because brain. So she's got a book out now called Halfway There, and it's just about the struggles of. Well, just about struggles.
And it's life and stuff. Yeah. But from that point of view of being and American, on Instagram, I can't remember, I didn't write that on her Instagram handle. And there's a song that I like.
So I really didn't understand the question. It's called I'm Sorry Tokyo by Brooke Alex, and it makes me cry every time because it's talking about just growing up and not accepting that Japanese half. Like your grandparents sending you books in Japanese and you just think, no, don't want to do that. Don't want to learn language. I want to be like my friends who are like all white or not half or anything like that. And I very much related to the way she wrote this song. It's really good.
And the fact that we can't think of that many characters is bad. It's not bad, it's telling. It's that there maybe aren't. I mean, I'm thinking of like half man, half god, like the Greek myths. I'm thinking of people that I don't know if it's their version, you know, that you're more than one thing and you're not supposed to be. Like those seem same but different. You know, there's a similar experience there, and there's something like you're part of this world and you're heading towards a transcendent, or you know, your foot is in both camps. And I think there's not an awful lot of mixed characters, and I mean in here, so the love interest is called Moses. He's also half, actually. Oh, didn't even think about that till now. Look how that just goes naturally in to my work. But he says to the character, you've got he wants to compliment her. You know, you're perfect, or you've got a 9 out of 10 smile, or whatever he says. And she says, I haven't, but so-and-so has. And I was thinking, who is the so-and-so that is she's going to hold the light up to? And I thought, it has to be someone who's Asian. And at the time, my cousin was just in the last season of White Lotus, and his love interest was Lisa, man of man, right? Lalisa. So I put her. Like she says, I'm not perfect, Lalisa is. And I was really happy to put someone who is Asian in as a benchmark of beauty, as a benchmark of someone that you want to be like, rather than like, I don't know, Cameron Diaz, well, like, you know. Because those, it's, you know, it's just, this is what we kind of need, is, you know, to be looking at different kind of people, different kind of beauty. Yeah.
I think you're right, it's really, really telling that we have struggled as four mixed people to actually come up with it. I think I sort of gravitated to some books mostly that do have some characters, but even for me, like coming up with the question, I did struggle, but I did come up with a few if anybody's interested in reading any mixed characters. In Gabrielle Zevin's Tomorrow, Sam, I want to say his son right, Masur, is, I believe, I want to make sure I get this right, Jewish, Korean American. And I really sort of latched onto that. I find as somebody that's mixed, like as soon as you read about a mixed person in a story, I mean, I personally just latch onto them. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so interesting, because I guess you expect to find maybe something of your own experience in them, but something to do with maybe connecting in terms of their mindset or how their lives pan out, or just anything that makes you feel like you have some tangible kind of hold on your own life, I guess. So that was one. And the other one, which is actually a Netflix show that's on Netflix right now, Too Much, which is, I don't know if everybody's watched it, but it was co-written, I think, by Lena Dunham. And in that, one of the main characters, called Felix, he is Japanese British. I can see some like swooning.
He's so hot.
I immediately, again, I just loved that. So you don't find out actually that he's officially mixed until you meet his family. This is a bit of a spoiler, but I won't spoil it too much. What I loved about it is that it wasn't just introducing his family. It's like, oh yeah, now it makes sense. Like his mum's Japanese and his dad's English or whatever. It actually really went into the stories of the parents, like what we were discussing. And it just became this full picture of Felix, his family, all their quirks and their sort of issues of their own that they're grappling with as, you know, a fully Japanese mother, a fully English father. Like everyone was bringing all of their baggage essentially into his life, and it fully explained more about the way he was as well. So I loved Felix. And I recommend watching Too Much because it's also just really entertaining. Okay, that has been so good. I would love to just open up to any questions. We've got 5 minutes left. Yes.
So much of the conversation has been about positivity, diversity, and inclusion, and in the creative process, but also the creative process is about, rejection and killing your darlings and going back to the drawing board. So how do you balance, letting yourself be expressed versus knowing that sometimes that's going to be like not all your ideas are going to be great. I don't mean that in a bad way, but
Not all my ideas.
when do you look at things and you say, no, I was kind of crazy on that, but maybe there's a scrap in that I can loop back into something else, or
Yeah. I mean, does anybody want to dive in with an answer?
Is that not any writer?
Do it all the time.
Like,
I think you're constant recycling.
I think that just happens regardless. It's not specific to being mixed. I would assume.
I mean, it's definitely something that I do a lot.
There's always
and try and
to be killed.
Yeah, exactly. Keep things or get rid of things and hold on to things when I can and move them into something else or a new project or
I would agree. I would say with picture books especially, I write sort of the turnover of stories is quite high and a small percentage actually gets approved by my agent and then goes on to being submitted, and a small percentage of those will actually get acquired. So there's definitely been instances where I've written picture books with mixed characters. I mean, a lot of my picture books do have most of them, actually all. Whenever, one of them gets killed off at a certain stage, whether it's from my agent or the publisher, a little bit inside you does kind of die.
Yeah.
But I think Camille's right, like it's part of the creative process in general, and I don't think it's necessarily specific to being mixed.
Do they ever really die? Do they not just sort of be undead somewhere?
I think there's a graveyard somewhere with all the mixed characters.
That could be in the back of your mind, and it's not like the mouse to one side, and 20 years later or whatever, suddenly you think, you know what, that's going to be brought back to life, resuscitated, and then
That's literally just it.
I
wrote 3 chapters 10 years ago and sat as a file on my laptop, and I just kind of went, I kind of like that, and carried on.
Any other questions?
Thanks for the great discussion and the rapport you built up. I run a company to teach children Chinese language, and I just want to talk about the next generation and mixed race in a different way. Some of our kids, they go to the Chinese immersion school or Spanish immersion school, being completely in a different race. So they might be Caucasians who study Chinese or Spanish in an immersive environment. So when you're doing a cultural identity survey, they believe themselves as Chinese as well. Despite, in terms of their racial, they have nothing to do with Chinese because they go to Chinese immersion schools, they believe they're Chinese, and they think every school is run the same way. So my question is, when you write for your creative process, drawing or writing, do you have an audience, target audience in mind? Is that audience somebody who's like you, or is that an audience which is belonging to a very different generation?
Great question.
So I was going to say, I don't think I write with an audience in mind, being a poet. Ultimately writing, I think I'm writing for myself, right? And hopefully when you edit over and over the lines over again, you get to something that might be interesting to someone else as well. So I'm not writing with an audience in mind, but I think maybe it's most different for you guys as children.
Yeah. Do you guys?
I am very navel-gazing as well, and I am making books and stories for me, or the version of me that is the child, which I mean very mature already anyway. So it's pretty much just for me, and and then I have to think, oh yeah, it has to sell to a oh, I'm gonna make it appealing and not have weirdly. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important. Again, like from an industry perspective, or something that I learned in my publishing journey is that even with something that feels very niche, they want it to be broad. They in an ideal world, everybody is interested in it, and that was how I felt about the book, was that like, even though I know that I'm also in a way writing to my younger self and writing to my parents and writing to people who are mixed in general, my hope was that other people who aren't mixed would find points of connection in it, because again, so many of the themes and issues that we come up against are so universal.
Human experience.
It's the human experience.
And I think it's about windows and mirrors again.
Right,
Exactly. Wendy mentioned that, you can see yourself, you can see other people's lives. It's fascinating what you say about the children feeling as though they are Chinese as well.
I just felt like time has changed so much with so many things going on. The world tomorrow will be very, very different from the world we grew up in.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I think. Candy wants to.
Can I uncle? He said no. Please, Eric. Okay, self-promotion. I've written a mixed character. 15 years ago, I wrote a book called Tall Story. And it was about separated siblings. One is a fully Filipino-born characters growing up in the Philippines. The other one is a half English and half, I don't like using the word half, but yes. And she dreams about meeting this brother who comes from the Philippines, and she's small, and she's told that her brother's tall, and he loves basketball, and she loves basketball. No one loves basketball in England. And then when she meets him, he's a giant. He's 8 foot tall. He can't speak English. It's terrible. And I was dwelling on the conflict between what you think, the two sides of you, and when they meet, how there's that conflict where sometimes I hate I can see my children are half Filipino or half British. I'm just thinking about them, and I always worry when they go to the Philippines, and Filipinos can be really weird and say weird things, and I just worry that they will feel weird about being. So what is that? Do you capture that in your writing, that kind of conflict? I saw you nodding. Go. Yes.
It's a hard one. It is. I mean, I think, and I can imagine in your books that comes up so often. But I know, even talking about language, we were talking about language earlier. For me, that's always been a major internal conflict, and the older I get, the more conscious I am that I don't speak either of my parents' languages, and the older I get, the more I want to latch on to these parts of myself that, again, I feel like can be taken away so easily. So I've started taking Tagalog lessons. I don't know when I'm going to learn Tweed, but pray for me. Time. Maybe when I'm like 60, I don't know when I'll fit it all in. But yeah, I do. I feel like so much of that comes up all the time. Is that
I would say as well, like this book here is literally all about that conflict. So it's a real, although the title sounds really beautiful and lovely. Luna, the main character, goes through a real low, and she confronts, the fact that she is mixed, and it's all about her coming back out of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We have to get ready for the next hour.